What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller from hook'emheadlines.com coming back at y'all today with a brief post-game reaction video and breakdown from Texas's 13-point win over Oklahoma State in the quarterfinals of the Big 12 men's tournament. Texas gets their first win of the Big 12 tournament, advances on to the semifinals to face the winner of the game between the 3 seed Kansas State and 6 seed TCU. That game will take place on March 10th. But yeah, let me get through some of my game notes here, give some of my thoughts, analysis, things like that from what was kind of a messy uh, win for Texas over Oklahoma State. Um, Texas does move to 24-8 on the season. Technically, their 13th win against the Big 12 or against a Big 12 team, but 12-6 in Big 12 play as far as the record officially shows. And then Texas also keeps their chances alive at a spot or at a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Tomorrow, I will do some checking up to see what the odds are for Texas to get the 1 seed and get a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. I've been following along to teamrankings.com. As of this morning, it was around 12 or 13%. I'm sure that will move a little bit with a double-digit win over a quad one team in Oklahoma State. But yeah, so this was a big win for Texas. You know, you get your third win in 3 tries against a Big 12 team. Texas really has had Oklahoma State's number this season. Um, and this win kind of fit right in line with how the other 2 games went this season. You know, Texas had won the previous 2 games over Oklahoma State by average margin of 12 points. They get the 13-point win today. Um, this win, though, was a little bit different in a sense because you had to fight through some adversity. Senior forward Timmy Allen was announced right before the game started to be out. He's fighting through a leg injury right now. From what I didn't get wind of this until about 30 minutes before tip-off. A UT spokesperson came out before the game and mentioned that Allen was dealing with this injury and could actually be out for the rest of the Big 12 tournament. I think Rodney Terry and the Longhorns are wanting to play this one conservative, keep him healthy for the NCAA tournament if at all possible. But yeah, I mean, there were a number of players that stepped up for Texas, especially on the defensive end of the floor, to make up for the absence of Timmy Allen. You know, I'll get into my studs and duds as I always do here in a moment, but I wanted to talk about just some of the team defense in this one. Um, you know, I tweeted out quite a few things after this game. If you're a fan of good offensive basketball, this was probably not the game for you. But the fact of the matter this was a really impressive defensive game for Texas, and that shows in. I think one stat that really sums that up well is the fact that Oklahoma State was held to under 50 points just twice this season, and both of those were against Texas. Held Oklahoma State to 47 points today, and then I believe it was actually the first meeting between these 2 teams this season in Stillwater. Texas held Oklahoma State to 46 points. Oklahoma State was pretty abysmal offensively in this game. I don't know another way to put it. They didn't have a single player that hit more than 3 field goals, and it was like 35% of their points ended up coming from the free throw line. They had 25 free throw attempts in this game and still shot 64% from the line. There was a point in time in the first half in this game when Oklahoma State had more points from the free throw line than they had from the field. Oklahoma State shoots 26.9% from the field, 14.3% from deep. They don't make a field goal throughout the final 3.5 minutes about for this game, and I think it was to start the second half. Oklahoma State missed their first 10 field goal attempts, 2 or 3 of which were layups. They also missed their first 2 free throw attempts and had 2 or 3 turnovers before they were able to knock down a look from the field. They got a few more buckets in the final 10 minutes of the game, but yeah, I mean, through and through, this was a offensive. This was a real offensive struggle. I don't know any other way to put it. Oklahoma State only has 2. They have 2 players that score in double figures. No other player had more than 7 points for them. For Texas, it was a little bit more of a team effort in this one. They ended up forcing 20 turnovers from Oklahoma State. Of those 20 turnovers, I believe 11 or 12 were steals. Marcus Carr comes up with a game high 4 steals. Um, Texas also has, I think it was 6 players, 5 players scoring in double figures. 6 players would have been their entire point total. But the fact that they scored 60 points and had 5 players scoring in the double figures is really, really impressive. Um, Almost not possible. But Dylan, you know what? I'll get into studs and duds here in a moment. But again, from a team perspective, while Texas didn't do great in the rebounding battle, you had certain guys stepping up to at least minimize the damage. Oklahoma State has a lot more length and just size on the inside than Texas does. You have guys like Musa Cisse, Caleb Boone, Tyreek Smith that are all like 6'11 plus, or maybe 6'10 plus, somewhere around there, and can really be menacing on the inside. But Texas dealt with that length really well. Texas only had 2 block shots in this one. Oklahoma State's a team that's averaging more than 6 blocks per game in the last 2 months. And so, nice job there to be able to adjust and really find a way to work around some of those impressive Oklahoma State bigs. Um, but yeah, like I said, as a whole, Texas played some really, really solid team defense. The last few stats of which I wanted to mention here. As far as set plays were concerned, there wasn't a whole lot of structure out of Oklahoma State's offense. But some of the things that Oklahoma State usually hangs their hat on as far as their offensive scheme and offensive system is concerned, the pick and roll. Oklahoma State has been decent in the pick and roll this season, averaging almost 3/4 of a point per possession. Um, as far as that's concerned, in the last couple of months, it's actually about average around the country in college hoops. But in this one, they are held to just 0.5 points per possession in the pick and roll. The main 2 areas, though, where Texas really stood out on defense against some certain sets from Oklahoma State. They really prevented any sort of off-ball cutting from the Pokes. Oklahoma State has been one of the better teams in terms of off-ball cutting this season in the Big 12. It's mostly has to do with their bigs are good at getting near the basket, getting open. Usually they draw some attention, but there's so many that they have that it's hard to cover all of them. And so, Texas did a really nice job of that. Oklahoma State is scoring nearly 1 point per possession on cutting plays this season. Texas cut that in half, only 0.5 points per possession in this one. And then the other one was post ups. Again, I keep mentioning Oklahoma State's length. Um, they actually get the second highest point total of any set play on offense for Oklahoma State is off post ups. They're held to just 0.571 points per possession. And only, I believe, it was 5 or 6 scoring possessions in this game from post up. So all in all, great job by the Texas defense, adjusted to pretty much anything Oklahoma State could throw at them, and really did a nice job, like I said, especially on the defensive end of the floor. This isn't a great Oklahoma State team offensively by any means, but again, I mentioned it before, Oklahoma State's only been held below 50 points twice this season. Both times were against Texas. I'll talk about some of my studs and duds here now. I always do this article over at the site post game, but there's some players that I have to give shout outs to here. You had a lot of guys step up that I wasn't really expecting in this one. One name that I've between some tweets I've had post game and the article on the site, Dylan Dessou is one guy that I want to give a lot of love to because he was tremendous. He was someone that Texas really needed to step up in the wake of Timmy Allen's absence. Dessou really answered the call. He ends up going plus 19 in a season high 32 minutes on the floor, and went 4-7 from the field, 11 points, uh, tied for a game high with 11 rebounds. One of the main reasons why Texas lost the rebounding battle, I think it was by a dozen in this one. One of the reasons why that wasn't an even more massive gap was because of Dylan Dessou. He was really the only one holding his own consistently down low against all of those Oklahoma State bigs. He also comes up with 3 steals, 1 block. He was just really, really impressive in almost every phase of the game. He gave Texas a spark around the middle of the first half. The offense started going dry a little bit. He ends up going 4 for 4 from the field in the first half for 8 points. Picked up a few additional points from the free throw line in the second half to get him into double figures. Like I said, really solid game from Dessou. Tyrese Hunter, another guy that's really playing some solid basketball lately, continues his streak of scoring in double figures to 5 games now. He scored at least 11 points in 5 straight, his longest streak for that particular stat category this season. He was 4 of 6 from the field, 3 of 5 from deep. Has another game where he's scoring around 2 points per field goal attempt. I talk about that stat a lot in terms of measuring efficiency, especially against a gritty defensive team like the Pokes. And that's really good to see. Hunter did turn the ball over 3 times, but again, this was a messy game. I believe 3 of the 5 players in Texas's starting 5 had at least 3 turnovers. So Hunter was definitely not in his own in that right. Came up with 1 block and had a hand in forcing a couple of turnovers as well on defense. So he was pretty good on both ends of the floor. Again, Hunter's really finding his shot lately, and if this is the version of Tyrese Hunter that Texas is going to get in the postseason, I have a lot of confidence about where this team is headed. Another couple of guys that I wanted to give shout outs to here, Sir'Jabari Rice. This was not his best game. He got his first start of the season, which was really good to see. But he came out of the gates pretty slow. He finishes up the game 4 of 13 shooting from the field. He got most of his points in the second half. He has 11 points in the second half. Goes 3 of 4 from the field, 4 of 4 from the line, 5 rebounds. He did have 3 turnovers in the second half, but also had 1 block and 1 steal. So, solid response there from Rice in the second half. Finishes up the game with 8 rebounds, 3 assists. So again, good to see him still playing some clutch basketball as he has all season long. And then Arterio Morris is the last guy I wanted to give a shout out to here. Morris was the spark that Texas needed off the bench in the first half. He played only 15 minutes in this game, but he was I believe he was a +4, and he shot 4 of 9 from the field, 2 of 4 from deep, had 2 steals, no turnovers, 1 rebound. He was really solid. Again, when Texas needed the spark in the first half, Sir'Jabari Rice and Christian Bishop have been the guys mostly giving Texas the scoring spark off the bench they've gotten all season long. But with Rice in the starting lineup, you kind of needed someone to step up and fill that void. Bishop only had 1 point in this game. He wasn't really much of a factor. So Morris, filled that role, and he was really effective in doing so. A couple of guys that were a little disappointing. I mentioned Christian Bishop. Was hoping to see more out of him with Timmy Allen out of the lineup, and he's kind of that guy that can play that 4 spot. You can usually have Dylan Mitchell or Dylan Dessou playing at the 5 with any sort of lineup combination in the front court, but I believe Bishop was actually the only guy that had a plus minus below 0 in this one. So understandable why his minutes were a little bit limited, and like I said, he just wasn't that effective in this one. Marcus Carr, I was hoping to see a little bit more out of him on the offensive end in this game. His slump is kind of going to 4 or 5 games now. He hasn't shot over 30% from the field in each of the last 4 games. He hasn't even shot 25% from deep in the last 4 contests. Goes 2 of 10 from the field, does get 10 points, mostly from the free throw line, 6 of 9 from the charity stripe. The good news, and I've mentioned this throughout a lot of the past few games, is that he's still getting it done in other ways. He's still making positive contributions in other facets. 3 rebounds, 3 assists, just 1 turnover, and 4 steals. Again, he went 2 of 10 from the field, but he was still a +14. I think he played all 40 minutes of this game. If there's positives that you can say about a player that shoots 2 of 10 from the field and 0 of 3 from deep, Marcus Carr would be the guy in this game that I'm talking about, because you got other guys like Tyrese Hunter, like Dylan Dessou, like Arterio Morris that are stepping up to provide other sources of scoring. Serge Barry Rice and Marcus Carr have kind of been those two sources of scoring, or two primary sources of scoring all season long. And so if you got, especially Tyrese Hunter, stepping up in the backcourt to, help out in the scoring department, if Marcus Carr is just effectively dishing the ball around, getting a lot of the dirty work done, getting some rebounds, effectively facilitating this offense, and just being so disruptive on the perimeter, that's fine. That's still going to be enough for Texas to play winning basketball on both ends of the floor. We'll see though once they start playing some better teams. If you Oklahoma State is one thing, but then you go and play a top 20 team or a top 20 caliber team like a TCU, like a Kansas State. Even if you work past that, like maybe a Kansas, it's going to start getting really tough. And so we'll see with Carr. But like I said, for now, considering the fact that he's pretty cold shooting from the field, it's good to see him consistently finding a multitude of other ways to contribute to winning ways for Texas. So looking ahead here, next up for Texas, I mentioned at the outset of the video, but we got the winner of the Kansas State TCU game. That game is going on right now as we are filming. It is tied at 23. I was expecting that to be a close one, so we'll see. Texas split the season series with both TCU and Kansas State. From a matchup perspective, both teams are really, really solid. I don't know if there's necessarily one that you would rather play if you're the Longhorns at this point. And then from there, if Texas does manage to get past the semifinals, you'll face the winner of Iowa State Baylor, or sorry, Iowa State Kansas. Iowa State pulled off the upset against Baylor today. But yeah, this is stacking up to be a pretty fun Big 12 tournament. There have been some interesting results, a couple of upsets so far, but for the time being, Texas moves on, keeps their shot at a 1 seed alive for the NCAA tournament, also keeps their hopes alive for their first Big 12 tournament crown since 2021. But it's not all that long, but it would be nice to get the second in the last 3 years. So anyway, for Andrew Miller at HookMeHeadlines.com, that's pretty much it. Welcome.